Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Well, apparently we are running on all the main channels, so we will keep on going. What a strange system Rumble is. It is not reliable, very glitchy, but we're on tonight. Sorry about last night. It did not connect, and we had a rebroadcast afterward. So we were still on, but just on YouTube and then Rumble later. But we're firing on the main Rumble channel, so we will continue tonight. And the main stories this evening are these reports on the rape gangs in the UK. That being one of the top stories tonight that we will highlight. Several reports actually coming out about it, so we'll update you on that. Also, the G7, a hot mic moment between Trump and Carney, where it appeared they were discussing Chinese electric vehicles. What else do we have for you? The Iran peace deal. We have, as well, Toronto police chief releasing more details about the attack on the U.S. consulate and synagogues and the subsequent police investigation and raid that led to the shooting death of a Toronto police officer last week. Some more information about that tonight as well. We have a lot of ground to cover, so stay with me. We'll come back on the other side and start digging in right after this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So right off the top, leaders from the G7 countries all meeting. Of course, the two figures dominating the headlines, Donald Trump and Mark Carney. Trump, of course, just dominant, period, because he's the president of the United States. And all attention is focused on him because of this memorandum of understanding / kind of almost a peace deal thing that he has with Iran, which is supposed to be signed electronically, maybe. It's still not clear exactly how that's going to go down on Friday. But a lot of chatter out there about how this is fragile because Benjamin Netenyahu saying he will not be removing troops from Lebanon, which is part of the deal, or so we're told. Netanyahu standing in defiance against it, showing that there seems to be a growing divide between Israel, Netanyahu, and Trump, the United States. Does it put the whole deal in jeopardy? Oh, yes, of course it does. there is still some firing taking place, even though there's supposed to be a ceasefire in place. And we're heading into the signing ceremony on Friday, which Trump, it doesn't look like he's going to be there. Instead, J.D. Vance will do the honors, however that goes down, if it goes down. And it isn't clear that it is going to go down because it's obviously still very fragile. And as we've seen repeatedly, these deals have a way of kind of falling apart if indeed they were ever really happening at all. Of course, this time we are getting acknowledgement from Iran that there is some sort of a deal in place. We are also seeing other leaders, including the leaders from the G7, acknowledging that there is something going on, or there's some sort of a framework for a deal in place to then look at a further deal, because it is not actually a peace deal. It's a memorandum of understanding that will lead to a 60-day extension on the ceasefire that hasn't really been a ceasefire. But here's Trump at the G7, where he was meeting with other leaders, especially including from there were many guests, not just G7 leaders, but guests from other countries today there, including Zelensky, including leaders from the Middle East. And here he is, I believe he's meeting here with someone from the UAE, and asked about this deal with Iran. Here we go.
I said, no, you're not going to develop it. You're not going to buy either. So we have, that took another couple of days of time. Everything was, it's ridiculous. But so they will not develop, purchase, buy, or any other thing. They're not going to acquire a nuclear weapon. If they do, all hell will rain down on them. And they're not going to do that, Now, you talk about regime change. I never cared about regime change. It's never a part, but I guess you have regime change because you know better than anybody. The first group, they're all dead. The second group, they're dead. A part of the third group is gone. And we're dealing with people that I think are very rational people. I mean, they were nice to deal with. They were strong people, smart people. I think actually they're smarter than the first and second group. But they're not radicalized, and they're, looking to help their country. So, again, I don't believe the regime change. I've watched regime changes for years. They never work. It has to just happen. I can tell you this is a country where...
And I'm sorry, this is the Emir from the state of Qatar.
And the Prime Minister is so respected by the people. And that's the way a country should run. It should run out of respect, not of fear. As you know, at least 42,000 protesters were killed in Iran. Killed. They were protesting. The wrestler, they had the big event at the White House the other day, the UFC, and they were all talking about he was a great fighter. And he was hung with his two friends because he spoke something about their regime. It's tough stuff. So we're very happy that we were involved. We're very, very impressed with Qatar and the way they've handled things, because they were really on the line. They were in the front line. They were being shot at just about as much as anybody, but you were a lot closer because you were right there. Literally, I could walk in a minute. Every other place I have to take a plane, but I can walk. So they were really on the line. And I just want to comment that, I just want to really congratulate you on bravery. I don't know if you get congratulated for bravery, because bravery is something you either have or you don't, and you never know until you test it. But you were tested, and you had great bravery. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Are you going to have a separate meeting with President Zelensky? And what would
I had one.
What would a Ukraine deal look like?
Well, we have one, but we had a good meeting. I'm meeting him later on, too. We had a very good meeting. Look, Russia should make a deal. Russia's lost tremendous amounts of people, and so has Ukraine. Last month, they lost 35,000 soldiers between the two of them. Think of that. This is on a monthly basis. They averaged 25,000 people, mostly soldiers, young, beautiful people. And it's crazy what's going on there. But we had a meeting, and we'll see how. I spoke with President Putin on Sunday. And sort of the same thing. I mean, they just keep going, fighting, losing soldiers. They lose so many soldiers. This is not since World War II has anything like this happened. I settled 8 wars. This was the one I thought was going to be the easiest settle. They just, there's a lot of dislike between the two leaders. But yeah, I'm meeting with him again later on today.
And are you going to have a special focus on Ukraine?
Well, we're going to look. Now we were focused on Iran. That's going to be in the back, in the rear view mirror. But look, we have nothing to do with it. We sell weapons to them. We don't even give them. Obama gave them $350 billion worth of weapons, which was crazy. The European Union pays us full price for weapons. But it's not that. It has no impact on us other than we sell weapons. We're thousands of miles away. But the only reason I don't like to see 25,000 young people die every month. Every month, 25,000 people die. Young people, they're just starting their life. They go to this front and they get blown up. And Ukraine is losing a lot of people too. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. So, yeah, I'm going to do whatever I can.
Okay. So, where should I pivot to from there? Well, he was talking about Zelensky and overnight more strikes inside Russia. Drone strike hit the largest oil refinery inside Russia, just 15 kilometers from the Kremlin. Supplies about 40% of Moscow's gasoline and about 50% of its diesel fuel. We have video. Last major fire. Not sure about the total effect. Don't know what this means in short, medium, long term. Depends on how much damage ultimately there is there. But this is just more escalation. Zelensky at the G7 today. Met with Carney and with Trump. He, of course, put an offer out saying he wanted to meet directly with Putin to talk peace, saying it was rejected by Russia. Enough of that. Also, just related to that, I noticed yesterday again, Russia. You may recall that I posted online, not yesterday, but then like last night, and then mentioned it like I posted early in the morning because it was an overnight attack. Devastating attack against Kyiv by Russia. You know, they're trading blows back and forth, and not last night, but the night before, there were these overnight attacks, devastating on the city of Kyiv. And one of the targets hit was this monastery, historic, an important part of Ukraine's culture and religions. But why am I bringing it up? Because, well, first I'll show you this. Because it's just another example of denials, propaganda, outright lies, I guess. And I think that's fair in this case. Here's what the impact of there was a drone strike on this monastery in Ukraine. Other churches, cultural institutions have been hit, and of course, other civilian targets inside Ukraine, as Russia unleashed 2 hypersonic missiles and 600 and some drones, and this monastery being one of the targets. Now, the reason I bring it up again tonight is just to again highlight the fog of war, the information war. Canada's Prime Minister, Mark Carney, condemned the attack, and online, there's this Russian account, Russia in Canada, posting this from the Embassy of Russia saying, can you see that on the screen? I'll check. Yes, there it is. Saying, we are once again obliged to note that the Canadian government is deliberately disseminating false information to the public. The Prime Minister's office is well aware that the Kyiv Pechersk-Lavra complex was hit by a missile launched from a U.S.-supplied Patriot air defense system as a result of the operation of Ukrainian air defenses. The armed forces of the Russian Federation neither conduct nor intend to conduct strikes against civilian infrastructure. Well, you hit a whole lot of it for not wanting to hit it. And I can tell you that there are independent, verified reports confirming that the remains of a Russian drone were found inside the monastery. So spare me. They've clearly been targeting Ukrainian cultural monuments, buildings, libraries, museums. They are trying to degrade Ukrainian culture. It's part of the war. And yes, they did take the children. So there's that too. And I'm not going to pull the punches. Now, you're getting propaganda on both sides, of course. When I see it on the other side, I'll call it out there too. But Russia has repeatedly denied these things when, in fact, it's absolutely true, including the lies surrounding Bucha and the war crimes committed there. So with that, do with it what you will. I can only tell you what the evidence shows. And I weep for the people. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, now back to the G7. The story in Canada related to the G7 that is dominating the headlines tonight, and it's just because of a teeny weeny little wee tiny very short audio clip caught on a hot mic, a moment that I think was supposed to be somewhat in confidence, but picked up by a microphone as Mark Carney leans in and has what's supposed to be a private word with Donald Trump, and looks like they're talking about electric vehicles. Chinese electric vehicles. Listen carefully. Less than 3% capped.
I thought you'd actually like it.
Okay, and then you have to look at the reaction that you get from Trump. It is maybe an important moment. It's revealing, I guess, is what the point is. So yeah, here he is. He leans in. Microphones catch part of this conversation. It looks like he's talking about the cap Canada has in place to allow as many as 49,000 Chinese electric vehicles into the country. The decision, the deal to let these Chinese vehicles into Canada, being played up by the U.S. side as some sin, mortal sin, because of the the rhetoric and the anti-China, the Chinese paranoia that they're using as a tool to put pressure on Canada. Carney clearly heard there saying a cap, indicating that that's as many as they will be letting in. And if you look at the body language, you look at how Trump responds, Carney goes on and says, I think you'd actually like that. And then Trump responds, he says, that's good. I like it. So what to make of that? I think that there's a lesson to be learned here. And that is that while you get all of the drama in media and on social media, with the rhetoric back and forth, there's like this negotiation taking place in the public sphere. It's all for our consumption, each side competing for your attention, for your mind, for your emotions. They're trying to gin up public support for their position as they head into the negotiations, because what you think matters. Your vote matters. That's why it's all directed at us. They need you on side. They will put information out to get you to put pressure on your prime minister or vice versa in the United States. But certainly in this relationship with the United States being the larger economy, the larger country, Trump has some leverage that way, obviously. So when they speak, when he speaks and makes these demands and says, we don't need anything from Canada, he knows that his political operatives, his political operative online social media influencers / streamers, they're going to ramp that up in a way that gets the Canadian people upset, angry, emotional. On either side of the issue, it'll polarize people, but the intent is to put pressure on the government by eroding support for the government, and to try to get Carney and his negotiating team to capitulate or soften them up before they actually go into the talks. What I take from this is they've been talking behind the scenes more than they're letting on. They have mutual interests. The United States does want a lot of things from Canada. Carney knows it. Canada's in a stronger position than Trump is letting on in public, but his negotiating tactics are always extreme. Ask for the moon and then 3 more moons, and hope that when all the dust settles, you end up with at least 1 moon, which is what you really wanted to begin with. And he nods and he says, yeah, I like that. So that means that, in my view, Canada will keep that carve-out deal with China to allow those 49,000 electric vehicles into the country. And it also tells me that partly what's going on is Trump is not fully informed. Carney knows it. Trump has a lot on his plate. They're always feeding him information every day. He's looking at what's going on in Iran. He's looking at what's going on in Europe with Russia, Ukraine, all of these different files. The trade file on Canada is just one. He doesn't have time to consume all of this information all the time. He's got that Gordie Howe Bridge issue as well between Canada and the United States, Windsor, Detroit, all these different things. And he's not likely even getting all of the details on what that carve-out deal with Canada and China is. To us Canadians, it's an important thing. I know largely what the details are, but I bet you Trump doesn't. Carney knows that too. That's why he's using the opportunity to approach him at the G7 to then go over and say, hey, you know, that that deal with China, and you guys have been talking about it all, just to give you the information, the details, this is all that it is. And I thought you'd like that. And then Trump leaves in, yeah, I like that. So there's not as much drama on that particular sticky point as we've been led to believe by the media. And the media uses it too. They wrap the stuff up and use it for clickbait. And what can I tell you other than that? Because that's kind of where it's at tonight. I'd say that that's a good indication is the bottom line. These trade talks will commence. They will happen. You can tell from the interaction that they're getting ready to talk, and they're on a friendlier footing than you might think. Not all the leaders there on real friendly footing with Trump. And Carney, you know, I think that he's a very good diplomat. And he has a much better relationship with Donald Trump than Justin Trudeau ever did. But not so with some of the other leaders. It appears that Trump may be giving the cold shoulder to some of the other leaders there, including Keir Starmer. But here's the big family photo moment where they all gather and have their snapshot taken as a group, the G7 leaders. And I think some of the guests were there as well from other countries. But then this is the other thing that's going on social media is they're pointing out every little faux pas, every little mistake, every little idiosyncrasy, especially with Trump and the other leaders too, but especially Trump. And here Trump turns and kind of wanders off in the wrong direction. And so people are making kind of a big deal. Go that way. He's like, oh, okay. And then they're, okay, follow me. This is being portrayed as a Joe Biden moment. Because he's a little disoriented. Losing his mind is what they're telling. I don't think it's quite that bad. I don't know about you, but I've made mistakes like that myself. But there are a bunch of these moments. So he's looking bad in that one. Zelensky looks bad in another one where it looks like Trump is just standing there ignoring him with his back to him when Zelensky appears to maybe want to shake his hand. Same with Keir Starmer. He's standing to the side. Trump shakes Carney's hand, two other hands, and then seems to ignore Starmer, but he's kind of off to the back in the corner. I don't know if Trump really paid much attention or even realized he was there. But on media, they're playing it up saying Starmer is entirely irrelevant. Maybe there's some of that going on. There probably is to some degree. But when I'm looking at these clips, they exaggerate them. They add a caption to make you think of it in that kind of framing. And that is the kind of political attack online that's becoming common on social media. But I don't know that it has that much actual value. It's just done to, again, erode the reputation, the image. It's a form of character assassination. What else do we have? Well, that's kind of what's been going on at the G7. The conference there will continue through until, I think it's tomorrow. So we'll continue to follow that. Let's take another little break. We'll come back, and we have a lot of other stuff to share with you. The police investigation into the consulate shooting and the death of that Toronto police officer, as well as the rape gang reports that have come out in the UK. Stay with me.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, so let's first of all just highlight what's going on. News conference today with Toronto's police chief. He says that criminals are hiring young people to do their dirty work here in Canada in some cases. And in fact, this is like a criminals for hire thing where they shot up synagogues. And it looks like that U.S. consulate shooting that ultimately led to the death of a Toronto police officer, Mark Pinizzotto, was the result of exactly this. Let's get you the clip with the chief today. The investigation there ongoing, the one arrest. I think let the police chief speak for himself. Here he goes.
To prevent violence, disrupt criminal activity, and hold offenders accountable. Now, today as we're talking about these specific arrests, before I pass it over to Chief Superintendent Matthews for more details, I want to address a broader pattern we see here. What we are dealing with in this case, and in other unrelated incidences, including shootings at synagogues and Jewish schools, is a recurring and similar modus operandi, and that is criminals for hire. Through encrypted messaging apps, young people are hired to carry out attacks against various targets. And in order to get paid, they're required to film their attacks. Who's paying for this? This is what we are trying to determine, including by working with our RCMP and FBI colleagues. Now, I know there's been a lot of reporting about criminal groups and foreign actors, but what I can tell you is that we are still working actively to investigate who is responsible for orchestrating these criminal acts. What we know is that bad actors are using criminal elements in our city to carry out these dangerous incidents. And it is clear that some of the people hiring these criminals want to create a sense of fear in our communities, including in the Jewish community. While we continue to follow every lead, I want to remind all levels of government of the importance of legislative reform, including key provisions in Bill C-16, such as creating a new offense for the recruitment of persons under 18 to commit a crime, and Bill C-22 on lawful access. If law enforcement does not have the tools needed to prevent violence that is planned and paid for through encrypted messaging apps, it is all of us in our communities that suffer.
So, yes, just to recap what's going on there. So we have the police chief revealing that a series of shootings across the Greater Toronto area, including the March attack on the U.S. consulate, along with a number of incidents at local synagogues and Jewish schools, he says are connected to multi-layered gun-for-hire networks. Criminals for hire, young people allegedly being recruited through encrypted apps like WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal. They're paid to carry out the attacks and then must film them as proof. 2 smuggled handguns recovered in recent raids, linked to at least 27 shootings. The announcement follows last week's raids, during which Toronto Constable Mark Pinizzotto was killed. 3 people face charges. 1 suspect still at large, manhunt ongoing. Police say the goal in some cases appears to be creating fear in communities, including the Jewish community, though they continue investigating who is orchestrating and paying for the violence. No injuries reported in the targeted shootings. Police urge anyone with information to come forward, and we'll continue to follow this. And those are the facts on that story tonight as we know them. All right. So what's going on with this deal in Iran anyway? Looks pretty shaky. It still doesn't look like it's the deal that Trump says that it is. Still, they have this preliminary agreement supposed to potentially lead to the end of this 3-month war. Trump says the deal is complete, calls it a breakthrough, says it will bring stability to the region, but it really isn't a peace deal. Just to be clear, it is an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. It really results, if signed on Friday, it results in a 60-day extension to the ceasefire. Now, the framework includes an immediate and permanent halt to the military operations on all fronts, including Lebanon, lifting of the U.S. naval blockade on Iranian ports, and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz to toll-free shipping by Friday. And the reason I bring it up right now is because I'm seeing reports here online saying that traffic through the strait is still strangled. Some things just preventing those ships from going in. And I think that there are still fears of mines floating around out there. Now, we've seen the markets react positively today with oil prices predictably dropping sharply. Questions remain, though, about the full implementation, Israel's stance, and verification measures. Did you see this from yesterday? I didn't get a chance to share it with you. But Gavin Newsom accused President Donald Trump of directing this investigation into him, his wife, first partner Jennifer Siebel Newsom, and now targets of a federal investigation by the Department of Justice. Newsom says they have not found a crime. They are simply trying to find one. And he adds that he's proud to join Trump's so-called enemies list and believes the investigation is tied to his potential 2028 presidential run. Why am I not surprised? It is so nasty. Politics is a blood sport, and they're given as good as they get, back and forth. Here, I'm going to play you the clip because it's like replay of what Trump was kind of going through, right? They targeted him, weaponizing the justice system. I didn't get a chance to run it last night, so I'll run it for you now. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. If you have, good review. If you haven't, you need to. Here he is, the man with the perfect hair.
In recent days, federal agents have knocked on the doors of family, friends, and former employees. Not because they found a crime, because they're simply trying to find one. They're demanding records. They're abusing the grand jury process, digging through years and years of random documents. Donald Trump isn't just coming after me because of my mean tweets. He's coming after me because I'm considering running for president, because he hates that I've consistently called him out over and over again for his lies and deceit. Donald Trump is simply the most corrupt president in American history. He's turned the levers of government into his own personal power ministries to reward cronies and to try to jail his opponents. His personal attorney now runs the Department of Justice, which has repeatedly gone after his political enemies. Ask Jerome Powell. Sent them after James Comey, Trish James, Adam Schiff. He sent them after Tim Walz, and a woman that a jury found Donald Trump had sexually abused. One by one, anyone who has challenged Donald Trump has ended up on his hit list. And today, I proudly join that list. After calling for my arrest last year, Donald Trump directed his Department of Justice to investigate me. And just in the last week, I've learned that his campaign has reached my own home. To get me, he's coming after my wife, Jen, a public servant, a woman who's dedicated her life to supporting women and girls, someone who has done nothing wrong other than having the temerity to advocate for what she believes in. If they can't intimidate me, they'll go after the mother of our children. Donald Trump picked the wrong target. We have nothing to hide. His political operatives can take every record and read every page, but they'll be looking in the wrong place. Because if they really want to find corruption, look no further than 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Donald Trump is selling the presidency. He's running the largest cash heist in American political history, trading foreign tariff relief for approval of his golf courses, day trading behind the Resolute desk, reaping hundreds of millions of dollars in personal profit. And he's doing it openly. He's doing it on camera. He did it last night on the White House lawn. He's doing it through cryptocurrencies. He's doing it through the receipt of a $400 million private jet from a foreign government that he plans to keep when he leaves office. Through his son's ventures in countries where his own administration is simultaneously making policy. His personal fortune has skyrocketed by $4 billion since making his return to office. This is the behavior of a regime, not a republic. The White House has become a marketplace for sneakers and coins and watches, cologne, guitars, Bibles, and phones. Influence for sale, access for sale. And today, my family and I can personally confirm that justice is for sale. To Donald Trump, who I know is watching because he watches everything, I have a message for you. You can subpoena my records. You can investigate me. You can harass me. Put my name on every and any enemies list you have, but leave my wife and family out of your personal vendetta. I'd like to say something to my wife. These times are not normal. They're not ordinary. I love you, and I'm sorry he's doing this. You have not earned a single one of the indignities that he's trying to inflict on you and our children. And to Donald Trump, this country does not belong to you. It does not belong to your cronies. And we're going to fight your lawlessness. And we're going to continue to remind the people of this country of your corruption. That same corruption our founders warned us against as we move to celebrate our 250th anniversary. I'm going to keep reminding Americans of what they warned would happen if a man with no character ever held the office of presidency. So let me say it again. Mr. President, come after me. I'm not going anywhere. And the country is watching.
Okay. Gavin Newsom. Back in Kazakhstan, you remember Jacob Hoggard, the front man for that for that music group Headley? I think they got their claim to fame came through, what was it? One of the talent shows. And then I think, was he the guy who said, they were the ones who said, we don't want the award. They dropped out or something. And because they were so good, they didn't need to win. I think that was what his deal was. Anyway, disgraced because they were on the road. They were doing their band thing. And then he was charged with a series of sexual assaults. And so, yeah, tonight he's been granted day parole for 6 months. Yeah, let's bring up the headline here. Interesting because the timing on this anyway. Here, I'll bring up the audio.
A young woman in northeastern Jacob Hoggard has been found now guilty of sexually assaulting a young woman in northeastern Ontario 8 years ago. Hoggard.
So yeah, it's like an ongoing case. Found not guilty in this case. One of the many that he was connected to, but in this case found not guilty.
Was accused of raping a woman following a Headley concert and after party in Kirkland Lake about 8 years ago. The former Headley frontman testified that it was a consensual one-night stand. And we spoke with criminal defense lawyer Monty McGregor about the speed with which the verdict was returned.
Well, it tells me that they clearly didn't believe the complainant, and I know Mr. Hogard testified as well, which isn't essential for his innocence, I can tell you in a legal sense, but clearly only 5 hours to deliberate. I would have thought it would have been much longer. I've had the experience where you lose a case quickly, and I've had a case where you win a case quickly, and it really makes you think that all 12 people had a unanimous decision, so there's no hesitation or question about the verdict in this instance.
Yeah. So when he was first charged, this was all over the news. Not getting quite as much traction tonight. But there was another decision back in June, and members of the parole board found that Hogard does not present an undue risk to society if released on day parole, and that his release would contribute to the protection of society by facilitating his reintegration into society as a law-abiding citizen. But he was found guilty back in 2022 of sexual assault causing bodily harm against an Ottawa woman, but found not guilty of sexually assaulting another complainant. So it's been a mixed bag back and forth. And he was also accused of sexually assaulting a third woman. He was acquitted on those charges in 2024. So anyway, he's going to be released to a community-based residential facility. And the board, I guess, denied his request for full parole. So for the time being, out on day parole. And the backstory on this is, I guess he had a Tinder account and talked to some woman for several days back in 2016. And then they got together and he got himself into a whole bunch of trouble. But there were a series of these incidents. And yeah, I mean, he had profile, I guess, and breached trust or whatever, and now his career is pretty much all washed up, or so it would seem. Although the weird thing about the entertainment business is you can do terrible, horrific, awful things and come out on the other side sometimes and still have something of a career, as difficult and embarrassing as you would think it would be. I look at what's going on with Russell Brand right now. All of the allegations directed at him, and now suddenly he has found Christ. And I'm sorry, I'm just not buying it. But so be it. All right. I'll tell you what, we're gonna come back in a moment, and then we'll start to dig into these rape gang reports out of the UK tonight. But before we do that, I suppose it's appropriate to take a little side road and give you this.
They both look clean, but the guest list redacted, if you know what I mean. We can't release the names to protect the victims. And also Donald Trump. Coincidence? Just dumb luck. Right? Another sealed file. That crocodile smile. We did our best, says the DOJ, while the truth just fades away. Another news spin. No one will win except the rich guys with gold ID cards and closets full of secrets behind steel bars. Just a little glitch. A billionaire's privilege. That's the sound of the case. Closed.
All right, before we get into the rape gang reports, let's I want to just share this with you as well, because Jordan Keeley, MLA for Peace River North in Western Canada, charged with sex crimes. And I highlight it for you tonight because it ties into what we're talking about, and because he has now made a statement on this, which I will bring you. But before I do that, let's give you the background on the charges and what he's dealing with. Here's a report outlining the info.
According to the Crown, the alleged offense that led to a sexual assault charge against Jordan Keeley took place between January and September 2024, before he was elected as a BC Conservative MLA. Keeley could not be reached by phone for comment.
Hi, you've reached Jordan Keeley. Please leave me a message after the beep.
He sent a text saying, "I'm innocent and I will prove it in court." Keeley has been sitting as an independent since March of last year, when he quit the Conservative caucus over disagreements with then-leader John Rustad. Despite sitting as an independent, Keeley endorsed Carrie Lynn Finley during the recent BC Conservative leadership race, and joined her on stage Saturday night when she was announced as the party's new leader.
Will she advise Mr. Keeley to step down? I think that British Columbians expect that the leader of the opposition will take a clear and decisive action on such a serious matter. This is frankly a real test of her leadership.
Through a member of her staff, Finley declined to comment on the allegations against Keeley. He was still an independent MLA when the charges were laid, although he had expressed interest in potentially asking Finley to allow him to rejoin the BC Conservatives.
It looked like she was going to. He endorsed her during the leadership race. There were photographs of them together. It looked like he was about to step back into the fold. I imagine that's not going to happen now.
No details on the alleged incident have been released. It's not clear how long the investigation has been underway, but the BC Prosecution Service says a special prosecutor was appointed back in February. The allegations against Keeley have not been tested in court.
That was CTV, and now Keeley responding, posting this.
Everybody, Jordan Keeley here. Hey everybody, Jordan Keeley here, your independent MLA from Peace River North. I'm coming to you live from my farm. I'm still alive. I didn't drop off the planet, and I didn't resign either. No matter what David Eby says, it's amazing if we go off of public opinion. I think there'd probably be more people call for him to resign than for me to resign. Because last I looked at our system, is that you're innocent until proven guilty. And David Eby was calling for me to resign before I even had a chance to go in my first hearing to say that I'm not guilty and that I'm innocent and that I've done nothing wrong and that I'll prove it. You know, this has been quite the past 2 weeks. Getting arrested for the first time. I've I don't have a criminal record. Being charged with sexual assault, especially when you're being charged with something that you never did, that my mom always raised me to be a gentleman and be respectful of others. And anybody around me would know that and vouch for that. And, you know, I've spent my whole life trying to help others, make other people happy. And that's why I actually became an MLA, is to make the biggest difference possible. And I actually take it as a compliment when the Premier calls me out, especially when it's the NDP, and saying that I should resign, because I think that I've actually been pushing as strong as I need to and opposing the NDP. I must be over the target, especially when you look at the timing of the circumstances. I'm not going to talk about the case. I'm sure there's going to be lots of people that will ask about that. I don't even know what I'm being accused of. I don't even have disclosure. Police asked me for a statement. What can I give a statement on when I don't even know? It's just crazy. Blew my mind. I got charged for that, and I knew I was going to get slandered and smeared across British Columbia. And after the police left my farm and doing that arrest and the release, my next phone call was to my mom to let her know that her son was going to be on the news, and it was going to be in the worst way possible. And you know, one of the best things was that I have such an amazing family, such great friends, and the best wife. And I have a wife that completely supports me through this, that completely understands exactly what's going on. She knows I'm innocent. But that was just so, I never thought that I would go through something like that. I never thought that I deserve getting accused of something like that or smeared of something like that. And I think I've been falsely accused. I think that for people that have been sexually assaulted, please go forward to the RCMP and report it, that it shouldn't happen. But right now, I think my biggest thing is that I'm now going to have to prove that I'm innocent in court. I should be innocent until proven guilty. But essentially, I will now most likely have to spend about $200,000 on a lawyer going to court to fight this. I'm not sure how long it's going to take. But I'd say that after I got charged, that Global News ended up phoning me within a couple hours. Interesting, the timing. So quickly. How they knew. And then hundreds of requests afterwards. But I want to let you know, I'm not resigning. I'm going to stay fighting. I haven't gone anywhere. Actually, one of the great things about having the farm, and I haven't been ignoring my duties. That's one of the things about being an MLA. I haven't actually taken any time off being an MLA. Started to fall behind on my farm, and I had a whole bunch of seeding and fixing to do. So I actually, before all of this happened, I had like 2 weeks that I was going to be dedicating to, I don't know if you can see it, but in the background there, I got 90 acres that I ended up just doing oats to cover crop, and then grass seed that I just put in for my hay field. And then next door, we got another 100 acres that we're doing as well. So we're just getting the oats in, and then we'll have the hay seed in too. Yes, I know it's late getting it in. like what always happens on a farm, there's always stuff that breaks. And unfortunately for me, on our main tractor, the wiring harness shorted out and caught on fire. So great thing about being a mechanic is that I was building a new wiring harness from scratch. So I've been staying busy. One of the downsides is, yes, I do have some things canceled because of the negative publicity. I will get around this. One of the things that got canceled, it was actually one of the things that I love doing the most, was the convocations and the graduations, being able to speak at them. That is something where I love being able to speak to those graduates that are eager to get out into the world and start their future. And being able to do that speech and inspire them, that's one of the things that I love. So I didn't end up, I wasn't able to go to those, but I didn't want any drama from my own personal, or from all this stuff going on with me, to get brought to those events. So I definitely wish them all the best and the brightest futures. So what else is going on? Tomorrow I'm going to be heading to Fort Nelson in the afternoon. Got an open house, some meetings, and then we're going to be going up to Toad River, doing a meeting with the community up there, and then we'll be coming back here. And we still got regular meetings happening within the office. And I saw that it seems like Amelia Boltby's really got a hate on for me. It's kind of weird because when she became an independent, I was like one of the few that was actually really nice for her. It's even when I saw her struggling to carry her suitcase up the stairs, I offered to be able to carry her suitcase up the stairs for her, and I did that. That's just being courteous. It's one of those things that I've always been very nice and respectful of others. And instead, she's turning around and saying that I need to resign as well or go on paid leave. I don't think I need to. And I think that if her bill proposal, where she's talking about that you automatically have to go on paid leave, it allows the NDP to weaponize the system because they control the Attorney General's office and Crown Counsel, that if let's just say anybody has a charge laid against them, say it's an opposition, and right now there's two of us that have charges laid against us that are from over 2 years ago, you can knock out your opposition. Wouldn't that be interesting for votes? That's just speculation. It's always interesting. The House is very close for votes. I'm still an independent for all those that it was interesting how the timing that it looked like I might have been going back to the Conservative Party of BC. But right now with this situation, with this court case, I'll be staying an independent. You never know what happens down the road. So I noticed some people that were really focused on, he's not a conservative, or he's not a Conservative Party of BC member. Well, I am a conservative. I'd say I'm probably too conservative for the Conservative Party of BC. I'm not a Conservative Party of BC member. They revoked that as 2 weeks after I became an independent. So I am going to continue to do my job, and I am going to continue to fight for my constituents and fight for what people deserve and what they need. And right now, I think that when we look at our criminal system, take a person like myself that I get a charge against me, and it was from over 2 years ago. I've had a clean record before all of this. We're now seeing it. I think the biggest problem I'd say is with David Eby and the revolving door, that we're seeing people that are convicted over and over and over and over, they just keep on getting out. And those are the things that he needs to be taking care of. And not speaking about me. How many times has it been brought up about opposition where we ask questions in question period, and then EB turn around and say, hey, we can't talk about that. It's before the courts. Yeah, EB's talking about me before I'm even in court. That sounds like a conflict of interest. But it shouldn't be about public opinion. It should be about facts, whether or not somebody's innocent or guilty. I'll let you know how Fort Nelson goes. I hope you have a wonderful day. I see a whole bunch of comments popping up here. And I just want to say, throughout all of this, that the next day after that charge was in place, that was probably one of the most horrible days that I've experienced. But one of the things that was amazing was the amount of support that I saw from everybody. And I want to say thank you. I won't let you down. And this is one of those things where everybody that knows me knows that I fight my hardest to help people around me. And there's very few people that I don't let down. So thank you very much for your support. And I'll let you know how Fort Nelson goes. Take care.
Okay, and now about this situation in the UK, the National Crime Agency today referred the first batch of historic grooming gang cases back to police forces for possible reinvestigation. This is under Operation Beaconport, described by the NCA as the UK's most comprehensive and complex investigation into child sexual abuse. Officers reviewing more than 1,200 previously closed files from 23 forces dating from January 2010 to March 2025. So far, cases from 8 forces, or force areas, I guess, have been identified with potential new lines of inquiry. Those forces have been ordered to reopen them. NCA Director General Graham Bigger called it the first step towards seeking justice for victims and survivors. This being highlighted on there's several reports today that have been released. This being one. Another one from the political party in the UK, Restore. There's a third report as well. Highlighted here on Sky News, but this stuff not getting really too much attention from mainstream media other than this in the UK, and yet it's going crazy viral online through the UK. And you can see the information here, and talking here about 7 men charged with rape and child sex abuse offenses following grooming gang investigation in Norfolk. Some just related stories. And we'll get to the Restore report, the rape gang report that they put together in a moment. But first, run this clip from the grooming gang panel, inquiry panel.
The police, clearly, schools, all of the ones that that victim survivors have said that at points that they've turned for help, they've not got the protection that they need and deserve. So we want to find out why.
Do you think there is an element of ethnicity, religion that is impacting A, on the perpetrator's actions, and B, on the way that institutions have responded to them?
Well, we set out to find that out. Clearly, there's already a number of reports that lead us in that direction, but we set out to find the truth on this, the extent of it, and what that's meant for survivors and victims. So it's a very active part of our investigation.
The National Inquiry team will oversee local inquiries, each with a £5 million budget. At least one will be in Oldham, and there's been local pressure for one in Bradford. The inquiry team will have offices in London, Leeds and Wales, probably Cardiff. It must be completed within 3 years in a budget of £65 million.
As part of a statutory inquiry, we're able to compel people to come to give evidence, which is really important. And what we're looking to see is that recommendations that are made by the panel are acted on.
We have been meeting victims and survivors, and it's actually been a real honour and very humbling to meet them and to hear their stories and to engage with them. We have pledged to be open, honest and accountable.
It was January last year when the government came under growing pressure over grooming gangs. The Prime Minister ordered a rapid national audit, but resisted a full national inquiry. Then in June, Louise Casey's audit found a collective failure to protect children and that data collection on ethnicity was flawed. The Prime Minister announced a full national statutory inquiry. In October, 2 mooted candidates for chair both withdrew after a poor reaction from survivors, many of whom wanted a judge-led inquiry. Then in December, the former Children's Commissioner Anne Longfield was appointed. More recently, there have been concerns the government was slow to ask for records to be preserved.
Are you worried that records may have been destroyed in the time that it's taken for that message to get through to various authorities?
Well, we're doing all we can. I'm doing all I can to make sure that everyone knows that actually there's a legal obligation to work with the inquiry, and that means preserving records, and that we'll be holding local institutions to account if they can't provide those records.
How?
Well, we have a statutory ability to compel them to hand over data, and anywhere we see gaps in data and evidence will be a red flag to us that we will investigate and call out.
So that's the official government ordered investigation. Let me just pull that down for you while I queue up the other material here that we need to dig into on this. Yeah, so but as I say, several reports actually coming out. I guess the and this one being criticized, the government report being criticized because it's saying it's too slow, taking too much time, and there are issues or concerns about transparency and political bias all the way around. And so this update on this process coming right now, 1 year after this inquiry was ordered by the government. And at the same time, there's this other independent inquiry that's happening, chaired by Restore Britain MP Rupert Lowe, published its full report today. The rape gang inquiry. This is a splinter group, political party that came from the Reform? I believe it's Reform Britain party. Hang on just a second. I'm just having a little bit of a technical problem, so just give me a moment, and I'll come back and we'll share the rest of this. Just let me get this straightened away.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, Donate. at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So yes, as I say, this issue has been front and center for Reform UK, and now you have this other party, this newer party that has been, they kind of split, and now you have Restore Britain, which is a harder line right-wing political party, which we've talked about, and they've also made this a central part of their political platform. And now releasing this report today, the Rape Gang Inquiry Report, which comes on the same time as this update on the official government inquiry update. It's just an update. The full investigation going to take years from the way things look. Now, the Rape Gang Inquiry crowdfunded. They gathered extensive survivor testimony, and I don't know. I personally have not had time to read very much of it, so it's difficult for me to speak with any authority or credibility on this as far as the contents of it. I can say this, though, with a certainty. It is steeped in politics, as this whole issue is, depending on who you speak to, from which party, and it seems like Restore Britain is trying to, I think, sort of steal the thunder of reform by grabbing a hold of this issue, publishing this report, and the reason I say, to me, it appears to be steeped in politics is because of the timing. Tomorrow, there's this key election in Makerfield. It's traditionally a Labor seat. It's being contested by Reform and Restore. They're going hard after this. And recent polls show, where are we at with this? Reform making big gains there. And Low trying to make inroads. They need a seat in Parliament and a voice there to push ahead with their agenda. Immigration being one of their top issues, if not the top issue. And then, of course, this rape gang issue connected to that, because they're saying that the victims of these rape gangs are predominantly white girls, white women, and the perpetrators are predominantly, they say, Pakistani. Now, the other thing about this report is that they are suggesting that since, oh my goodness, going back at least to the 1950s and even before, they're saying that there has been a catastrophic, horrific string of these rapes affecting, they're saying, at least 250,000 young, mostly white British girls, as part of a systemic or systematic grooming and abuse system problem, highlighting what they're calling repeated institutional betrayals. And in this report, they're making recommendations, including tougher sentences, deportation, of course, of foreign offenders, a national compensation scheme for survivors, and penalties for officials who failed to act. The rhetoric surrounding this tonight, very emotional, politically charged. Here's Rupert Lowe from Restore Britain. I'll play you the clip as we try to give everybody a voice for full context. Here he is.
This report is over 200 pages long, and it goes into the root causes of probably the most extensive, widespread scandal that has ever beset Britain. It goes to every corner of the country. It's not in silos, it's everywhere. And it involves failure by the British establishment. And by the British establishment, I mean, obviously, government ministers, the civil service, local government, social services, the police, the judiciary, the NHS, and the media, who is supposed to be the guardian for the British people of scandals like this, but they've singularly failed to do that. The report goes into the reasons how it's happened. It goes into the reasons why it's happened, and that is all the reasons, and we analyze everything. I'm very grateful to all of the experts who appeared, all of the survivors who were brave enough to appear, all of my fellow MPs who came, and most of all to Graham Smith, who is the barrister who has produced this report with help from members of the inquiry team as well. I'm immensely grateful to all of them. It's been a very harrowing experience. Some of the testimonies we heard were beyond believable. And it is an evil which needs to be dealt with, and dealt with now. I want to let people know that this is not the end of it. We will be pursuing those people who have failed us. There will be private prosecutions. To put things into context, this report, which was funded by 20,000 concerned citizens who gave as much as they could afford, it raised £600,000. The J inquiry alone cost the taxpayer 186 million. We still have funds left to help us to pursue private prosecutions and to start the process of prosecuting those people who have failed us. We're also intent on naming those people in Parliament, where we're not going to prejudice a legal case, so that everybody knows those people who are responsible, who should have dealt with this, but failed to deal with it. So it's been a long, hard, arduous 16 months, and I want to thank everybody. And I hope that every member of the British public has the time to read this. It's not straightforward. It will take time. But it needs to be understood, and it needs to be dealt with, and dealt with now. Not through a statutory inquiry which has been forced by our inquiry. A statutory inquiry which, by the way, has had the terms of reference watered down and will, like all government failures, be kicked down the road. And by the time hands are held up and people admit there's a problem, the people who made the decisions, the bad decisions, which is common in government, as we've seen with the post office, as we've seen with infected blood and countless other scandals that have had to be cleaned up, that there will be no retribution, no holding to account. And when there's no holding to account, these things continue to happen. So please read it, and please understand how this has happened. We can never let it happen again. It is pure, driven, unfettered evil.
I'll need to read the report. I know that number, for instance, of 250,000, that's an extrapolation. That's not a hard number. Could be more, could be less. They're saying at least. They're saying it's even more. They clearly are going back in time quite a distance. In fact, some of the stats that they're producing seem to stretch back as far as a century. And when you're going that far back in time, I'm wondering if, they're trying to massage the numbers to get big numbers. Well, at the same time, they do have what appear to be witness testimonies that then bring it down to a human level so that people can understand the issue from an actual singular victim's perspective. Regardless of any of this, it's pretty clear that it is highly charged politically, the different political parties using it for political advantage. And it is, of course, being criticized by some people tonight because of the politics surrounding it all. It's unfortunate that when you're dealing with something as serious as this and with real victims and what is clearly a real problem, it does become politicized. And this report from Restore being highlighted on social media, getting a lot of attraction. It's actually stealing the show, if you will, online. It's the thing that's going viral. This interim report from the government, this update, also released at this time, not getting much traction at all right now. But it's not the final report either. So there's still more to come on that side. Critics of the government saying that they're just way too slow. On this side, there is also criticism. However, it's being called sloppy by some and not dealing with being dealt with in a serious way. I don't know why, because I haven't read it, but I will give you, the another perspective on this tonight. This from Donna Rachel, the dissident counselor, who says that after reading just a portion of the front of the report, so she hasn't read this whole thing either, but she's already coming out with criticism saying that it has errors in terminology, sloppy definitions, a complete lack of proper structure or legal framework. An amateur production, she says, prioritizing publicity over precision. But you would think that before coming up and making those kinds of statements, she would read the whole thing to make sure that she's properly versed in the contents. But I'll let her speak, and if she makes mistakes, then maybe we'll highlight that later. But here's her reaction.
The Rape Gang Inquiry report is out. And I'm going to try not to laugh because it feels mean. I haven't read the whole thing. It's 219 pages. It's only just come out a couple of hours ago. So this time last year, I went to Alistair Harrison and I explained to him that in order for the report to stand up to scrutiny when it was released, it needed a proper methodology and it needed a proper, what do they call it? Terms of reference, okay? And that he needed somebody to create that, preferably with somebody with expertise. Although I said, I have some expertise being a journalist and having written reports. I was happy to do that kind of work. But ideally, it needed to be somebody who actually had proper grounding in things like statistical analysis and research methods and all that kind of stuff, right? So I actually wasn't going to do it myself. I was going to find people who do know how to do that thing. But I was going to at least steer it because I know what's kind of meant to, be there. Obviously, none of that got done because Alistair Harrison said to me, we're not going to pay you. And I said, okay, but you still need someone to do all this stuff. We'll just get ripped apart. And he said, don't worry, we've got a lawyer on it who's going to write it for free. Now, it turns out that they did not have a lawyer on it to write it for free. They had Josh Firm, who's from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, not a lawyer, and Charlie Downs and Harrison Pitt, who I believe are also not lawyers. And so, as a result, they also haven't done their research either, because on page 11, for example, we find the following. In each of these areas, the same tactics were used. Girls as young as 11, ... were trafficked across county lines. County lines are phone lines. And you don't even have to do a lot of digging to find that out, right? Literally, all you have to do is Google what is a county line, and it will tell you that county lines are the way that urban drug dealers get their drugs out into more rural areas. They have phone lines that people can call to get drugs. Those are county lines. So you cannot traffic somebody over a county line unless you're trafficking them over a phone line, which I guess is technically possible if you're also selling them on a phone line or via that phone, but that's not what they mean here, right? So if they haven't understood the basics of how the drug network works in this country, then they have absolutely no hope of understanding grooming gangs, because grooming gangs are criminal cartel enterprises. That is the grooming gang, right? It's a criminal gang. And the two are very, very closely aligned. Where you get drugs, you get grooming gangs, and vice versa. This is exactly what Alexis J was talking about in her 2014, 12 years ago, report on Rotherham, the really famous one that everybody knows about because that's what got this whole thing kind of off and running in the first place, okay? So that was the report that came out of Andrew Norfolk's reporting, which obviously started in 2011. He made a big noise about Rotherham. The council came under scrutiny, and then Alexis J was hired to write her report. And she has a whole chapter in her report that just talks about a woman named Angie Heel. Angie Heel was hired in 2002, I believe, by the police, the South Yorkshire Police, I believe it's called. It was in Rotherham, to look at actually drugs, right? And what she found very, very quickly was that there were a lot of vulnerable children attached to the drugs trade. And so she went to the police at that point and said, hey, if you want to be properly safeguarding children, then you need to look at this connection with drugs. And they ignored her. They actually buried the report. That's why Alexis J accused them of looking the other way and being institutionally complicit. So that got buried. Then she released another report in 2003, another one in 2005, and then she quit because nobody was listening to her and nothing was getting done about it. So Alexis J identified that as long ago as 2002, the Rotherham trade could have been stopped if the police and the councils had looked at the connection between drugs and children who were being groomed. None of that, I'm going to assume from that line in the Rape Gang Inquiry Report, has made it into the Rape Gang Inquiry Report. Because if it had, they would know that county lines are phone lines and not county demarcation lines, and therefore you don't get trafficked across them. I'm going to leave this video here because I will start banging my head against the desk. But I hope this gives you some idea of how little research these guys have done. They've also put a whole load of stuff in there about the Muslims and how awful the Muslims are, but in really, really vague terms. Everywhere that there are Muslims, you get these problems. Well, there are 2 billion Muslims on the planet. I don't think it's literally everywhere. But anyway, that's a story for another day. See you later.
I have to read it. I'll tell you, the politics is thick on this, man. And it's clear there's a problem, but I think this is just one of a problem, which is part of an even larger problem. I know that there's apparently an even larger problem with familial sexual abuse of children, making up I think this you've got a huge problem with sexual abuse in every country, including the UK. This just being one aspect of it in the United Kingdom. You also have a huge problem with interfamily sexual abuse, uncles and siblings and parents even sexually abusing children. And I guess that makes up in the UK about half of all the sexual abuse of kids. But not to diminish the impact or the severity of this, but you know, until I read it, I don't really want to have, I don't have an opinion on what these numbers mean. I just know that you can make numbers say a lot of different things. And so I'm being cautious about this, especially what makes it very suspicious for me is the timing on this release, because we have tomorrow this election, this Makerfield by-election, and this being released like the day before, this is going to have a direct impact on the polls there. So yeah, it's absolutely being used as a political weapon, which makes me wonder about the whole report. So I know there's a real problem, no question about that. How severe is it? How credible is this report? How helpful will this report be? You only get to good outcomes if you have accurate information. So if the report isn't credible, if it exaggerates things, if it takes the numbers and skews them, then it isn't worth anything. In fact, it could do more harm than good. I don't know. But at the same time, if it is, it seems like the facts, the core facts, at least, it seemed to be there and not in conflict with these other reports that have also come out, including this interim update on the official government investigation into a GB News, you know, a right-wing, conservative, whatever. I don't know how to characterize anything anymore politically. These old labels, I don't think they always fit, but GB News highlighting the story extensively. Here we have the director of Open Justice UK, Adam Wren, breaking down the findings of this rape gang report. Many hoping that this will lead to private prosecutions. We'll see where it goes. Here's the clip.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of personal testimony in there that's really quite emotive, quite moving, that you wouldn't really get in a proper inquiry. It's not really the place for it. And I think there's no other real mechanism that the public would have to read or to hear that kind of stuff. I think that was worth doing.
And will the victims, do we know today, are they satisfied now, at least, that they've been heard, their stories are out there in the open? What do they want next, Adam?
Yeah, well, my experience is from talking to them that, you know, the thing that really gets to them is that this has been a decades-long fight, and they've not been believed for that entire time. So to have somebody willing to, you know, sit down and do the interviews with them and then present their stories in this report, I think it means quite a lot, yeah.
And does this report mean that we might see arrests?
You know, they've said that they intend to pursue private prosecutions, which I think is quite interesting. It's an interesting project. We'll see what happens with that. I think in this country, the CPS tends to take over private prosecutions. Yeah, I think this is very curious. It's never been done before. I'm very, very interested in how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little lost on me, Adam. Because, as you say, it's not something we've heard before. Can you just explain in a little bit? Maybe, you know, you're not aware of it in that much detail at this stage. But what might that mean? What might the barriers to that be?
So I think from the evidence that they've collected from the testimony of the survivors, they intend to pursue prosecutions against both the perpetrators and some of the you know, council workers and frontline staff that they allege have turned a blind eye. I think it's going to be very, very curious how this turns out, because my understanding is that with private prosecutions in the UK, which are, you know, prosecutions that are not brought by the government, the CPS tends to step in and, you know, forcefully take the prosecution on themselves. That could be quite difficult in some of these cases, because without police collaboration, there's not going to be the same, you know, the evidentiary level that you need to prove rape, for example.
Yeah.
I think it's worth pursuing. It's just something that is not typically done.
Yeah, well, and presumably quite expensive for the victims, for the young women affected by this.
Well, they crowdfunded, I think it was 600,000, which, and I presume that the money for that is that's what it's going to be used for. I think Elon also tweeted that he would fund it if they pursued it, but I don't know if he commented on it after that. It's going to be.
Yeah, I'm sure he would.
Let's take a look at this other GB News report to get some additional perspective there.
Huge bombshell news today. The rape gang inquiry report has just been published in full. It lays bare the astonishing scale of the rape, abuse and torture of potentially hundreds of thousands of young white girls at the evil hands of predominantly Pakistani Muslim men and men from other Muslim countries. The report is 219 pages long. I spent most of the afternoon sifting through it, and here are my key takeaways. The first case of a Pakistani rape gang apparently dates back to Bradford in 1955, which indicates this abuse has been going on for more than 70 years. Rape gang convictions between 1997 and 2018 reveal that 87% of people convicted for group-based sexual abuse have traditional Muslim names. Analysis of 264 convictions for group-based child sexual exploitation between 2005 and 2017 found that 84% of the perpetrators were South Asian, with the vast majority Pakistani Muslim. Only 7% were white, 8% were black. This indicates that white people are actually underrepresented, and those of South Asian or Muslim identity are significantly overrepresented when it comes to group-based child sexual abuse. Now, they've traced the abuse in this report to 149 local districts. Apparently, that is 40% of all of the districts across the UK. Some girls were trafficked to the Middle East to undergo Islamic marriage abroad. The victims were often called white trash or kafar, and victim testimony reveals that they were targeted specifically for being non-Muslim. The report identifies the Islamic doctrine of al-wala wal-bara as a key factor. They say it's superiority of men over women, domination of non-believers, sex slavery, etc. The report also says that it is directly due to mass immigration that this ideology was brought into Britain. Now, there was a failure right across all aspects of the state. Police reportedly ignored or destroyed evidence and criminalised the victims. Medical professionals allegedly discharged girls as young as 13 who presented at medical facilities with sexually transmitted diseases, who were pregnant, or who had even attempted suicide. Schools allegedly observed older men collecting girls at the gates. They heard disclosures about rape on school premises and responded by excluding the victims rather than protecting them. Taxi licensing authorities renewed permits for drivers who formed the logistical backbone of the networks and collapsed in the face of organised protests when basic safety measures were proposed. I should point out that they were not black cabs involved in that. And it identifies political failures. The report claims Labour-dominated councils and MPs were briefed on the gangs long ago, yet later denied any knowledge. It says the party prioritised electoral reliance on Muslim voting blocs and then blocked or watered down inquiries, suppressed ethnicity data and framed legitimate concerns as far-right agitation. The report also criticises the Conservative Party, who, whilst in government, stands accused of continuing with Labour's approach and failed to impose mandatory ethnicity recording or launch a full statutory inquiry, despite clear evidence from Rotherham and elsewhere. Also, Scottish political parties have refused a dedicated inquiry and failed to record offender ethnicity. The report also singles out Sadiq Khan for special criticism, stating that when he appeared to deny the existence of grooming gangs in London, quotes, these statements were made despite the Metropolitan Police holding reports of young girls being plied with alcohol and drugs, then raped by groups of men in hotels and other locations across the capital. A Daily Express investigation revealed that Sadiq Khan had direct access to some of these documents detailing exactly these patterns of offending. The reports claim that he read the files, yet continued to deny the existence of grooming gangs in public. Sadiq Khan would no doubt deny the allegations in this report. The report includes very powerful testimony from victims and survivors, often through the use of false names to protect the girls' identities. And a warning now that the details I'm about to share are very distressing, but I think they do need to be heard. Jen said that they have no compassion, speaking of her attackers here, they have no compassion for the young girls that are out on the streets. So they see us as slags, as white trash, as English pig dogs, she said they used to be.
Oh, I think we lost our link. I apologize. Hang on one moment. I'll restore.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, well, we'll move on here. It's at the top of the hour, and we're at the end of our broadcast day, as it were. So I'll leave you tonight with one last thing, and I will read that report in full. Maybe give you a little more depth on it tomorrow after I try to get through 200 and some pages of that, along with all the other material that I have to consume every day in order to put this broadcast together. And by the time I get to tomorrow, there'll be a ton of other stuff. Oh, just one other aspect of this now, as I said, I think that this Restore Party is trying to steal the thunder of reform, which has also made immigration, and I think this grooming gang issue a key part of its political platform. But, you know, the Restore Party taking things harder to the right. This is a reform politician responding to this. Now, this, keep in mind, this politician, this reform politician, I think also concerned about the issue and that party making immigration a big part of its platform, but saying tonight, for goodness sake, according to Richard James, for goodness sake, he says, this report is deeply flawed and attracting growing criticism. Rupert Lowe was advised not to proceed because it risked undermining both the police investigation and a proper statutory inquiry with powers to compel witnesses and evidence. Unhelpful. I understand what he's saying. He's saying that by doing what they've done, they may have jumped the gun and could have actually put investigations in jeopardy because they've maybe dirtied or muddied testimony, evidence, and compromised the integrity and cleanliness of information as it needs to be collected by investigators and presented in court. I understand it's a legal issue, but at the same time, it's information that people clearly want more of because it is such a serious issue affecting such a huge number of people. But is this report helpful or not? I will read it and bring you more on it tomorrow. Speaking of justice, there's this, wow, this is a story about the Black Hornet, a motorcycle stunt driver who is now facing, he's in a bit of trouble. He's a social media influencer. I don't know, influencer? He's I guess influencer is the word that's being used. Anyway, he's a clickbait artist. You know, it's all this extreme sports and what do they call it? You know, the parkour, right? Where people do crazy things and jump off buildings and do you know, life-defying crazy things like jumping from one building to another. Well, this guy making a series of videos of doing stunts at high speed on a motorcycle, now facing charges. Rhode Island State Police arrested and charged Ahmed T. Al-Gaburi, a 28-year-old social media influencer known online as Black Hornet 1. You know, he's now facing dozens of criminal driving offenses. And people seem to love it. He's accumulated more than 1.2 million followers across YouTube, Instagram, Facebook by broadcasting himself driving like a madman on his black motorcycle.
Investigators say the man known online as Black Hornet 1 turned Rhode Island highways into his own personal racetrack.
It's scary because I drive the highways a lot every day back and forth to work, and things like that happen all the time.
Police charged 28-year-old Ahmed Al-Gaburi with 29 counts of reckless driving, along with 3 counts each of eluding police and street racing. A search warrant also uncovered several large-capacity feeding devices. Investigators say months of videos helped build the case. Videos like this posted to YouTube 3 months ago appear to show the rider dart between vehicles on I-95 near the Lonsdale Avenue exit in Pawtucket.
He could kill somebody, not only himself, but somebody else.
He's doing it for views, and he got to be careful with his safety. A lot of people have been dying lately due to those motorcycle accidents.
As of Monday evening, the Black Hornet 1 accounts have more than 1.2 million followers between Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook combined. Police say identifying him wasn't easy.
I'm glad that they took it seriously. Absolutely.
Put him in jail. Yeah, I would, until he learns his lesson, basically.
We tried getting answers from Al-Gaburi ourselves. No one came to the door. So we called.
Any comment on the charges against you by RISP?
He hung up. For drivers, the message is simple.
Good, I'm glad he got caught.
I've also got this. Things have not always gone as planned for this daredevil. This posted, well, recorded by somebody and then reposted later. This is how easy it can be to See, to have things go wrong, you can end up dead. Oh, he broke his toy.
Why the fuck you opened the door? You don't see?
Oh.
It's her fault.
His motorcycle toy.
Fucking dumb. Go. I'm good. It's her. She opened the door in front of me, bro.
I don't have this.
I'm good, yeah, I'm good. Fucking dumb bitch, bro.
Oops. Well, that didn't learn him. He was still out there doing crazy, dumbass stuff. I have to tell you, personally, I don't much like motorcycles. A friend of mine when I was young, he was a bodybuilder, an award-winning bodybuilder. He had a motorcycle, and he got into an accident and crushed his legs. His legs got crushed in this traffic accident. I went to visit him in the hospital so many years ago now, but they had like long rods down the sides of his legs and rods going through his legs to like build them up and support them again to give them the mass and the depth. Well, they tried to make the bones in his legs heal again, so that he could walk, and that his bodybuilding days were done. And the experience of going to visit him in the hospital and seeing those rods through his legs just turned me off of motorcycles after that, like for good. Don't want one, don't want to ride one, don't want anything to do with them, honestly. They're very, 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 very dangerous in my humble personal opinion. I'll stick to four wheels and drive the speed limit, especially now that I'm older. My son says, "How come you're driving so slow?" I'm like, the speed limit? Yeah, the speed limit. That would be kind of where I'm at. My daredevil days are behind me. I'm a little older and a little bit wiser than I was when I was younger. Experience counts for something. I'll try and share more of it with you tomorrow night when I return, 7 p.m. Eastern, on the flip side. Until then, I'll leave you with this.
Well, she's sitting in the driveway all dressed in black. Got that slick paint, you know she got the knack. Chrome glimmers in the moonlight, like a star on the rise. When I slide behind the wheel, I feel alive. Oh, I can't deny, got the little black vest, she's my midnight ride. Rolling down the highway with my girl by my side. Fast as a whisper, smooth as a dream. In my little black vest, we're a rock and roll team. Leather seats and a rumble that shakes the ground. With the top down low, we're lost in the sound. That engine growls like a lion's roar. Every mile we take, I just want more. Got the little black vest, she's my midnight ride. Rolling down the highway with my girl by my side. Fast as a whisper, smooth as a dream. In my little black van, we're a rock and roll team. Oh, the world slows down when we hit that street. The wind in our hair can't beat me. With the guitar rain under the stars so bright. In my little black van, everything feels right.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.